Hey, welcome back. It's another week, and it's time to get another project going. I've got all my bikes on the road this year except this lovely old '69 Commando. This was the first Norton I ever bought, and I think it was the first bike I ever restored. So anyway, I need to get this out on the road. It's June 18th, and usually I've got this on the road sometime in April, so I'm a bit late getting to this one. I've been working on a lot of other people's bikes and a lot of my own bikes too this year, so I'll be getting an oil filter for that, and I think I'm going to check the valves on this year. I mean, I haven't done that in quite a few years, and it would make me a little more comfortable if I did. Then again, I may not. They're not noisy or anything like that, but sometimes the valve clearances can actually close up, and that's just as bad, if not worse, than them being too loose. So it wouldn't be a bad idea for me to check those valves, and I need to clean the ignition points and just check the gaps in ignition timing and that sort of thing. But other than that, that should be it for putting this on the road. Meantime, I am getting a little tired of doing motorcycle after motorcycle after motorcycle. I think I need to take a break for a week or so from doing this sort of thing, even though I love it. It's the thing that keeps me going, I think, above all else. But anyway, I would like to get out in the wood shop. I've got a little model I started making there last winter while the snow was still blowing around, so I'd kind of like to get back at that little ship model and do a little work on that. Plus I have a renovation going on in the house where I'm turning an old bathroom into a bedroom closet, so I'll have to get back at that too. So anyway, there may be some other things I do. Anyway, let's get this old Commando up on the lift at this old machine I've had for, 36 years or something like that. Get her up on the lift and get her ready for the road for this year. All right, got the old thing up here on the lift. I'm gonna start doing a bit of maintenance to it. I was checking the oil level. All I usually do is just run a zip tie down in there, and if there's about 3/4 of an inch, well, that's actually what that bolt is for. But if there's 3/4 of an inch of oil in it, you're good to go. And the oil's nice and clean in there, especially considering it's a primary. But I checked my chain tension. I found it in need of adjustment, so to adjust that chain tension, what you do is you loosen that big nut right there, and then in under all these oil hoses there's an adjuster in there, so you adjust the nuts on that. I found this to be a little bit on the tight side, so what I did was move the top of the transmission forward in that direction. So anyway, so I adjusted the nuts, checked my chain tension just by reaching through here and sticking my finger through the hole until I got about 3/8 of an inch of up and down play. And I don't know if you could see them or not. Maybe I should have bought the flashlight. Anyway, then I tightened those adjusters back up, tightened the big nut up here. You can also loosen off the nut on the bottom of the transmission if you want to. But I find it's usually not necessary because, even though it's tight, that transmission will still rock back and forth, especially if you give that nut a little push with a screwdriver or something. So anyway, it's all adjusted up to where I want it to be. So I'm going to put the plug back in here. These are plugs I made, gosh, must have been around 1990 or so that I made those plugs. Anyway, I made a special little slug up to fit in that machine slot right there, and that's the slug right there. I just put that in the slot and then use a wrench on the slug to tighten it up, and that keeps it from rattling around too much. And it doesn't damage the slot itself. Like that's been in and out of there for the last, what, 35 years or something like that. Anyways, I'm going to put it back in, snug it back up, because everything's good to go for the season in there. So use my slug to tighten it up. There, I'll just put the wrench on that slug and give that a little twist, and so that's it for the primary. What will I do next? I will probably check the ignition points next. I've taken the cover off. I just wanted to show you something. Years and years and years ago, when I first got this bike, I broke this cover. What I did was one of these pillar studs were coming out with the screw. Anyway, somehow or other, I managed, I think you can see that, I managed to break off the casting on the inside there. It's supposed to look like that, right? But I broke it off because I was being too rough with it. My own damn fault. My own stupidity. Never be rough with any of these things. If things don't want to come off, then find out why. But anyway, I counterbored this side right here, and I made up that little stainless steel sleeve to go in there and fill up the space where it had all cracked out on this one. And you can see that that sort of a spool piece that I made up. You can see it right there. Anyway, that worked perfectly, and it's been working ever since. So whenever I take these off, I'm always very careful to make sure both those screws come out nice and even. And if they're not coming out right nice and even, I know why, because one of these pillar bolts is following it out. So anyway, just be a little bit careful when you're dealing with that, because I mean, Brits knew how to cast aluminum, but the Japanese knew better. Anyway, it's a little delicate. It's a little more like soapstone. So just be a little gentle with these things when you're taking them apart. And that goes with anything on these bikes. But here we are. We're into the old set of points. Yeah, a little bit grubby looking, but I'll clean them up. These ignition points were in the bike when I bought it back in 1989. They're probably original to the machine. And there's nothing wrong with them. The bike runs perfectly with them in, so why change it? Even the advance mechanism, I did replace the springs on the advance, but the advance is good and snug. The timing doesn't waver around or anything when you check it with a timing light. So that's how you know that everything is good with your timing advance, if the timing doesn't waver. Anyway, I'm just going to drag a little piece of garnet paper between these points just to clean the faces up. Then I'll measure the gaps. To be honest with you, I do not think I'm going to have to change those gaps. Can I see that? Yeah. If you see this little mark on your timing cam, and all the timing cams on British bikes, at least the Lucas ones, have this little mark right here. You want that mark to be under the shoe right here, that plastic shoe on your ignition points. That's where you measure your point gap, because these girls here, they don't always run true with the crank or the cam or whatever they happen to be running off of. Usually the cam with these bikes, but yeah, check your gap when that little tiny mark right there is under the shoe of the points. So I'm going to do that now. When I'm finished dragging that garnet paper through, I'll clean them up with some clean cardboard and some ignition points cleaner. So and then I'll oil everything up, just put it back together. I don't think I will have to check the ignition timing. That was set last year and confirmed with the strobe light as well. So usually all you have to do is just check your point gap, and if the point gap is right, you usually bang on with your timing. So anyway, let's get on with cleaning those up. Okay, I'm just finishing this up. I've already done this set of points right here. So now I'm doing this set. Always wipe that blade off. That's 15th thou was what I got these points at. And as you can see, that little mark on the cam is right under the shoe on the points. So I'm gonna just slip that ever so carefully in between there. I am getting just the slightest drag. You got to be careful, well, you know, the angle that you're holding this thing at, and make sure you're going in and perfectly straight. Wiggle it back and forth a few times just to make sure that you are not pushing the points apart when that goes in there. Because if you push that in and you notice the points coming apart like that, you know, then you need to adjust the gap. But if you can slide that in and just feel just the slightest drag and no movement whatsoever on those points. Now, yep, okay, I don't need to adjust those points at all. They're perfectly acceptable, so I'm just going to take a bit of oil and oil up that felt wick down here. That's what keeps the shoes lubricated. I'll put a tiny drop of oil right here on the shaft that goes through the ignition points. Now, a lot of people say you don't need to lubricate these because they're nylon, but you know, I know that nylon is a self-lubricating type of plastic, but you do need to put a little tiny bit of oil on there. It will prevent them. And I'll also put a drop of oil right under that washer here on the end of the cam there, so that oil can get underneath and into that bushing with this cam. Let's see if I can move it for you. I think I moved it a little bit. I wonder if I can do that with the tip of that. Yeah, you can see that cam, how that moves back and forth. That's how the advanced mechanism moves that. So anyway, I'm just going to lube everything up, put the cover back on. That's it for the ignition. You know what? That took me all of 15 minutes. Why go with electronic ignition when these are so easily repaired, so easily maintained? I mean, if I didn't have this, I would probably, you know, this whole setup, I probably would go with electronic ignition. But for the sake of a little bit of maintenance, I mean, that's part of owning these bikes, is doing this maintenance. If you don't want to do this maintenance, then you really shouldn't own an old bike. It's just that simple. Anyway, one thing I did think about just now is I did move the transmission ahead ever so slightly to get that clearance. I just want to make sure that my main drive chain back here has still got that's still got about 3/4 of an inch, so that's fine. Because you know, if you move the transmission ahead, then you're going to tighten the rear chain a little bit. So by moving that transmission ahead, I probably did myself a little favor there, so I don't have to adjust the back chain now. Anyway, I'm going to put a little bit of oil on this point, on the lubrication points, and that on the points. Put the cover back on, and then that's looked after. We're one step closer to having this old girl back on the road this year. And I am behind schedule, because what is this? This is the 23rd of June. Usually I've got this on the road by the 23rd of April, so I am falling behind in my work here. There, I think you can see up in there. Anyway, I've got a nice new oil filter on there. I gotta confess, I don't change my oil filters every year. Like, you can see how clean that oil is in that old oil filter. So I only change these filters about every other year. So yeah, there's not a lot of miles on that at all. So anyway, I'm kind of cheap, so I don't change them every year. Every other year, except on a newly rebuilt bike, I'll change those a couple of times, well, in the first 1,000 miles, but then I'll do it every other year after that. But anyway, so the oil filter's in there. I've got to put some oil in the tank, which lives in under here. I got to get the seat off to do that. I'll probably pull the side cover too, just get that out of the way. It's not a big deal. Comes off quite easily. I don't know if I'm going to do those valves now or not, because I checked in my maintenance book, and it wasn't that long ago that I did them. So I think I'm just going to let them go for this year. I'm quite sure they're just fine. So, yeah, I'll get some oil in that oil tank and some air in the tires and lube up the rear chain, and she should be ready for a maiden voyage. I did decide to check the valves. The exhaust valves are perfect. I didn't have to reset them at all. So are the intakes. I've got the cover back on. That's a tight spot to get at up under the tank without removing it, but it is possible to do it. Anyway, yeah, I didn't have to adjust the intakes or the exhaust. I set them at 4 and 6, so I'm just getting ready to put the covers back on. I got some new gaskets to go on those ones too, so I'll stick them back on, and then I'll know the valves are done and it won't bother me. Okay, I've got the valve covers all back in place now. I dressed those gaskets when I put them in with a little bit of that old Loctite 518. It's nice stuff. 518? Yeah. Anyway, it's the anaerobic type. You remove the oxygen from the equation and it sets up. So let's see. I took the plugs out just to check what color they are. And I mean, look at the color of the insulator on that. That just doesn't get any more perfect than that. And the one from the other side over there on the left is every bit as good as that. So there's no need to change the plugs. I'll check the gaps, but I'm quite sure they're still perfect. But it doesn't hurt to check anyway. One thing I wanted to mention, a couple of things I wanted to mention. This bike here, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's this funny looking spring there, and this other affair that comes off the head. That's a Mark IV head steady that's on there. They're supposed to work a little bit better, and it does, the tension on the springs there does relieve some of the weight from the isoelastics up front. And those are the vernier adjustable isoelastics. I did those up last year, just checked them out to make sure they were within specs, and anyway, they're perfectly fine. I did adjust this one slightly, but I didn't even have to touch the rear one. Let's see. Oh yeah, stainless steel reinforced oil lines going to the cylinder heads. Yeah, anyway. Oh yes, I wanted to mention these. I had the typical problems that people have with many of these bikes, is that the exhaust nuts get loose and then they worry the threads out of them. Well, when I bought the bike, it was already shot. And there are ways of having these repaired. I mean, you can get a sleeve put in there and welded in place and then machined out with the thread cut in it. What I did was, I actually, on the other side, I'll show that to you in a minute, there's an aluminum finned steady, or a finned exhaust clamp that I made with oversized threads to bite a new set of threads into the cylinder head, and it worked quite well. But they were still always backing off and coming loose. You always had to carry a wrench with you when you went riding. On this particular machine, anyway, my other Norton doesn't cause me any trouble at all. But I got fed up with trying to fix it and stuff. So what I wound up doing was, I got a good friend of mine who's really good with a TIG welder to weld a spot in here between the fins. And he filled that in with a little bit of aluminum weld. Then I tapped it out, fitted it with a stud and a nut, and that just happens to fit quite nicely into the exhaust collar. So yeah, who cares if there's threads in there anymore? It doesn't matter, because now I just bolt them on with the two studs there with the nuts on the end, and I haven't had any trouble with that setup since I mounted the pipes that way, and it's been, God, 20 years now since I did that. So this, I can definitely say that was a good fix, because after 20 years I would know if it wasn't. So anyway, let's see. I got to put some oil in the oil tank, and I think I'll be ready to fire this thing up. So let me get the plugs back in there and some oil in her, and we'll see what happens then. Okay, I'm ready for the first start of 2025. See if this old girl will give me a hard time or not. You never really know. Most of the time it starts up on the first kick, but there's only one way to find out. So, I'll get the camera aiming at a decent angle. Batteries in, oil tank's full. Oh, let me just grab my flashlight, because I do want to look in the oil tank. That's why the seat is off. But, it'll take a while to get a return oil flow to this bike, because I've changed the oil filter, and you have to fill up the oil filter first. So, turn on the fuel cock, and from the right hand side, like that, and from the left hand side, just like that. Alright. Well, I don't think I need to choke. It's pretty warm today. I think it's about 22 degrees out here in the shop. It's very humid too, so ignition on. Yeah, okay. Let's see what happens. One kick. Quick little walk around. Yep, got to check out the tire pressures and get the seat back on, of course. I think it's ready for a road test. And there it is out in the sunshine. All ready for a test run. Check the tire pressures, cleaned up the rims and stuff, cleaned up the whole bike actually. So well, she got her face washed and all that stuff, so good to go. Let's get her out on the road. I'm not expecting any surprises. Ran perfectly when I put it away. It's certainly run perfectly now. Right, well, geared up a Kind of a feeble attempt at a camera mount. So I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I'm going to give it a try. See if I can take you out with me for this test ride. Yeah. Headlights working. All right. Get this old girl in gear and get her down the driveway. Here, so I'll apologize for that before I start. Back at the far end of one of my test roads. Anyway, the bike's running perfectly, so all that's left to do now is just enjoy it for the rest of the year. So thanks for watching. Be good to each other, and we'll see what comes up next time.